Hi there, I'm the Reverend Danny Crosby, a Unitarian minister serving congregations in Altrincham and Urmston in the northwest of England. And I'm offering this devotion as a balm for the heart, for the mind, for the spirit, and for the soul. And it's titled, If We Could Meet Soul to Soul. I'm going to begin with a little poem called Soul Lifts by Tess Bornberg. Soul Lifts. Wouldn't it be great if you could take a picture of your soul? Then when your mother wanted to brag about you, she could show people the picture and say, "That's my daughter. Doesn't she have a beautiful soul, all sparkly and many-coloured and flowing all around her?" Wouldn't it be great if we walked around surrounded by our souls, so that they were the first thing people saw instead of the last things? Then people would judge us by who we really are instead of how we look. Imagine no more racism, ageism, sexism, fatism, shortism, homophobia. Imagine falling in love with who a person is just by looking at them. It would be kind of a cloaking device, hiding physical faults, defects, or even perfections. I'd want it to be mandatory. Then people would work at making their souls more attractive instead of their bodies and faces. Imagine people knowing by your soul that you really need a hug. Imagine people helping each other and their souls changing colours or growing. Imagine soul gyms with exercises to get your sagging soul in shape. Imagine the long lines forming for soul lifts at churches, temples, mosques, synagogues, or nature's grand cathedrals. So, some good questions there, but would it be great if we walked around surrounded by our souls? If our souls were the first things that we saw in each other? Would it? Something to ponder, perhaps. Might be a bit frightening for some folk. Now, last Tuesday evening, during Living the Questions, we explored three of the Delphic maxims inscribed in the Temple of Apollo. Perhaps the three best known are: know thyself, nothing in excess, and surety brings ruin. As always in these monthly groups, it was a great conversation, a conversation that ran deep. During the conversation around the first maxim, know thyself, I delved into how we know the essence of ourselves. We kind of delved together how we know our own essence and others. Not so much our surface selves, but our souls. The conversation kind of flowed into this area. Is it ever possible to know our souls, our own souls? And can we really see the souls, know the souls of another? Is that possible? Would it be too frightening? Maybe. Well, I believe we can actually. I have discovered that you truly know some people, and that some people can truly get to know you. You do not have to be afraid. It's not common, but it does happen. What fascinates me is that you can know some people in a really short space of time, whilst you can know some people all of your life, or at least for many decades of your life, and they don't really know you at all. Some people, not in the soul sense. And then there are some people that you resonate with almost immediately. I suppose kindred spirits, you might call them. And there are others that you just don't. I can count on one hand, actually, the people who I can truly say I connected with, or I have connected with on a deep soul level. True kindred spirits, true soul friends, what the ancient Celts named Anam Cara. A couple of them I only knew for a few years. A couple I've known for many years. And recently someone I've only known a few months. But they feel like a soul friend. And such people awaken something deeply within you. As you awaken within them, something deeper, a deeper connection beyond the physical. All of these people came into my life at times of deep, soulful change. And they lit up my life in weirdly wonderful ways. Beautifully strange. Weirdly, but somehow wonderful. Brings to mind a very well-known quote by the great Albert Schweitzer. Must have been an amazing soul to know. At times our own light goes out and is rekindled by a spark from another person. Each of us has cause to think with deep gratitude of those who have lighted the flame within us. We can meet many people throughout our lives who see our souls and whose souls we see, who understand us fully and who we understand, people who know us and people who we know. They help bring about transformation, nay, transfiguration, as we do to them. So I give thanks and with deep, deep gratitude for those who have lit the flame within me, as I have in them. True kindred spirits, true soul friends. As I mentioned earlier, the ancient Celts named such friends Anam Cara, which means soul friend. And Anam Cara is a teacher, companion, or spiritual guide. They are someone who you can share your innermost self with, and thus unearth some of those hidden gems that we really let out in life and let shine. As you break through the usual human barriers to a deeper soul level, there is a deep sense of belonging and recognition involved in such relationships, both in the present moment and also the eternal, actually. There's something more. Such relationships have the capacity to transform and take us to deeper experiences of who we are and what life can be. An Anam Cara is a loved one who awakens your life in order to free you to the undreamed of possibilities deep within you. I am blessed to have known some of these souls in my journey through life. Some have been with me a long time, one for just a few short years. Some lived for many seasons, one just a few. Some were old and wise, and some were so young their light shone for only a short time, but it shone so brightly. Most are actually no longer physically with me. They are as the other side of the air, to quote Rilke. But their soul is still alive in my soul. I know this to be true. A couple are still physically here too. Such soul friends are a real blessing. There is no greater blessing, actually. It awakens something deep within. A part of our light, perhaps, that we keep hidden too much, really. So I call these people, and so do many others, really, for that matter, soul friends. But it's a curious phrase. We know what friend is. But what do we mean, or what do I mean when I speak of soul? Because it's one of those words that can mean so many things to different people. Like when people speak of the divine or they speak of God, they may not be speaking of the same thing. They're speaking of something else. So when I speak of soul, or when you speak of soul, we may not be speaking of exactly the same thing. Such words need to be used carefully. For me, I would call the soul the essence of a person, that which animates our being, that which enables us to be touched, and that which enables us to touch the world in deep and profound ways beyond the material, deeper than that, a deeper part, the core of our being that connects us to all being, all life. In A Hidden Wholeness, Parker J. Palmer describes it this way. The soul is generous. It takes in the needs of the world. The soul is wise. It suffers without shutting down. The soul is hopeful. It engages the world in ways that keep opening our hearts. The soul is creative. It finds a path between realities that might defeat us and fantasies that are mere escapes. All we need to do is to bring down the wall that separates us from our own souls and deprives the world of the soul's regenerative power. For me, I would say without soul, what we really are, we aren't anything really other than material that moves and makes noises. But there's something more that animates us. So soul's a really important word to me. It's how I know the world, actually. It's how the world knows me. But I can't fully define it. That's impossible. Beyond me, beyond anybody. Anybody who says that they can, be careful of them. But we try. Of course we try. But we never truly reach what we truly mean. It is a mystery. Again, as Palmer pointed out, secular humanists call it identity and integrity. Hasidic Jews call it the spark of the divine in every being. Thomas Merton called it true self. Quakers call it the inner light. Buddhists call it big self and no self. If there is a universal word for it, perhaps it is the being in human being. It's that greater reality, I would say, deep down within us that animates our whole being and that connects us to the universal being, if you like, in all being, in all life. It's something, but it's not a thing in the sense of the heart's a thing. What we name this essence, if you like, does not really matter. At least it doesn't matter to me anyway. But it is vital that we recognize it in one another and in ourselves, that we recognize that we all have this essence within us, including ourselves. But if we do not, we will fail to recognize our own sacredness and the sacredness of everyone else. And if we don't recognize this sacredness, then anything goes, anything is justified, any horror. If we fail to recognize this in each other, we treat one another as commodities to be used and abused. Because if we fail to recognize this sacredness, nothing matters in life. It is vital that we recognize ourselves and each other as sacred beings animated by this spirit, this soul, if you like, this essence that connects us to our everything. So the soul is vital to me. It's vital I recognize it in myself and I recognize it in everything else. I have come to believe that more than anything else, it is soul that animates my whole human being. But that's just my view. You might think I'm talking absolute twaddle. Others come up with different thoughts, other ideas, and I'll give you a brief overview of some of the great religious traditions. Classic Christian theology sees the soul not only as eternal, but immortal. It also sees it following the teachings of the great Greek philosopher Plato as unchanging and separate from the body. And I think this is distinct actually from the Jewish understanding, if there's actually truly a Jewish understanding. What they might refer to as what Christians perhaps would call soul is really spirit or the breath of God bestowed on creation. There certainly isn't a concept of a separate soul that I can find in the Jewish tradition. I think it's illustrated really from these words from Genesis 2, verse 7. The Lord God formed the man from the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and the man became a living being. So when we talk, is it talking about soul or is it talking about spirit here, ruach, which literally means wind, the breath of life? It is this that creates life, animates life, including human life, human beings. It's important to realize here that this is not unique though to human beings, but actually all life is created, is formed, is animated. The word animal, it comes from the same word as animate. It's all from spirit. In Hinduism, what seems to be the soul, or something similar to soul, I suppose, in a Western sense, is what's called the Atman, this divine aspect that they bow to. They bow to the divine in one another. And it's understood in the tradition to live many, many physical lives. And the purpose of these physical lives is to unite the soul with the one universal soul, the God, the Brahman. And this uniting of the two, this harmony, this bringing them together, this yoking, this yoga, if you like, is called the Brahman Atman synthesis in Hinduism. Now, it's generally thought that Buddhism rejects any concept of an eternal soul, at least. During the long nights of meditation under the Bodhi tree, the Buddha found, it is said, no evidence for the basic Hindu doctrines that he'd been taught as a child and as a man. But through his extrasensory perception vision, the Buddha, it is said, looked high and low for the Hindu godhead Brahman and the eternal and unchanging soul, the Atman, if you like, that was our share of the Brahman. What the Buddha discovered has been confirmed by contemporary physics, it would appear that there is, so they say, that nothing, not even an atom, endures. All things come into being and then they go out of being. All things flow like the river. And many later Buddhists assume that because Buddha did not find the Hindu immortal soul, that he did not believe in a soul or even really a self. But this is correct only if you define the soul as eternal, immortal, and unchanging. While the Buddha rejected the idea of that, he still believed that every human being and every animal were still living beings. So we kind of saw some kind of animation in the living creation, similar to what we might see in the Jewish concept found in Buddhism. Not the same, but there are parallels, I guess. Now, for myself, I see no distinction between soul and spirit. There is this essence, although I can't quite find an adequate explanation for what that might be. This essence that comes into being and yet is so much more than mere material existence, whatever name we give the mere material existence. Nor am I with pure materialists either, who reject any concept of soul or spirit, this essence. No, that does not explain life at all, not adequately. It doesn't explain you or me or anything about me, really. Falls even further short, I think. By the way, I don't believe that soul is restricted to humans either. I say this because I have known and I know deep connections with both animals and with nature. The soul of me can connect with a tree blowing in the wind, or a little dog running around, particularly little dogs actually. I know that little Charlie has a deep, deep soul, no more deeper. There is soul, there is spirit in everything in my eyes. Everything matters. All matter matters so much. Now, Mary Oliver beautifully extended the concept of soul beyond human confines in the question she asks in the following poem. She wrote a lot about soul. You could argue that's all she ever wrote about, but maybe that's just me putting things on Mary. I don't know. But anyway, here's one of her lovely poems. Some Questions You Might Ask by Mary Oliver. Is the soul solid like iron? Or is it tender and breakable like the wings of a moth and the beak of an owl? Who has it and who doesn't? I keep looking around me. The face of the moth is as sad as the face of Jesus. The swan opens her white wings slowly. In the fall, the black bear carries leaves into the darkness. One question leads to another. Does it have a shape like an iceberg? Like the eye of a hummingbird? Does it have one lung like the snake and the scallop? Why should I have it and not the anteater who loves her children? Why should I have it and not the camel? Come to think of it, what about maple trees? What about the blue iris? What about all the little stones sitting alone in the moonlight? What about roses and lemons and their shining leaves? What about the grass? Good questions to ask. What about the grass? And here's a little more Mary Oliver actually talking about soul. Again, it's obviously very important to her. It's from a wonderful book, Redbird, and it's titled, What is the Greatest Gift? What is the Greatest Gift by Mary Oliver. What is the greatest gift? Could it be the world itself, the oceans, the meadowlark, the patience of the trees and the wind? Could it be love with its sweet clamour of passion? Sweet clamour of passion? Something else entirely holds me in thrall. That you have a life that I wonder about more than I wonder about my own. That you have a life courteous, intelligent, that I wonder about more than I wonder about my own. That you have a soul, your own, no one else's, that I wonder about more than I wonder about my own. So that I find my soul clapping its hands for yours more than my own, more than my own, more than my own. I wonder about it more than my own. This is what fascinates me. This is what animates my soul, to truly know the soul of another, and that they may know mine. What animates me, what brings me to life, what is it that allows a person, what allows us to connect with our true being, to connect to that true being in our human being. This is what I wonder about. This is what I live for. I'm with Mary. I wonder about your soul, your essence, more than I do my own, actually. I want to know it. My soul claps its hand for your soul. Well, actually, in my case, it probably sings. It sings. My soul sings. And my soul wants to sing with your soul. It's what animates it more than anything, actually. I am so very blessed to have known a handful of people in my life that I can call soul friends. I'm also blessed to have known others in deep and wonderful ways too, but maybe not quite that way. I am blessed by the people I have known and who have known me. They have touched me so deeply. They have become good friends. Sometimes they have become soul friends. And I've been thinking about this a lot these last few weeks. As I've connected once again in a deeply soulful sense, someone who on the surface I am not alike at all, and yet soulfully, it is like looking in the mirror. Looking at this person in the sense that Baumberg poem that I began this devotion with described earlier. If you could see a person's soul on the surface, if it's the first thing you saw. And one thing I have no doubt about is that this will happen again and again and again. Maybe it's going to happen more frequently. Gosh, I hope so. Maybe if I let people see my soul more, I will see theirs. Maybe it's a you show me yours and I'll show you mine kind of game. Maybe. It doesn't quite work like that, of course. But I command you to do the same. To meet one another, to truly know one another, soul to soul. Maybe that's some homework, something to think about. Think about those people who you have connected with in a deep way, even if it was only for a short time. Think about the people that have awakened something deep within you, or the people you've awakened deep within them. Think of those who have helped you to know that love, the love that is divine, to know God's love. If it wasn't a person, Perhaps it was a place or an animal. Maybe it was nature itself. Something or someone that awakened your soul, that helped you to know yourself. And when you've done so, come and sing with me a song of praise. There are encounters that can shape us and change us forever. Some are for a reason, some are for a season, some are for a lifetime. We cannot know this when we first begin communicating with someone, although sometimes our souls do, sometimes instinctively we do. Such encounters can lead to unknown transformations, for they do reveal the love that is divine. So let's stay open to them. You never know. The next person you meet may become the good friend, may become a soul friend, may become an Anam Cara, someone who transforms your life, and someone whose life you transform too. An encounter, soul to soul, an encounter that brings about transformation, an encounter that brings about transfiguration. May it be so. Amen. So I'm going to close with some final words of blessing. We need to bless more, and we can all bless. We bless when we give ourselves wholly to life, soul to soul. So just some closing words. May the love which overcomes all differences, which puts to flight all fears, which reconciles all who are separated, may that love be in us and among us, now and always. And may that deep, deep love, the love that is God, may that love be with us, and may it be so in all that we feel, in all that we think, in all that we say, in all that we do. Go in love, go in peace, soul to soul. Amen.